Hey YouTube, welcome back to Fixed. Today we got this old chainsaw that was my dad's. He passed a few years back, and before that it had probably sat for a couple years, and that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. So we're going to see if we can get this thing running. I know for sure that this spark plug cable is bad, broken, whatever you want to call it, and it's just generally just needs some love. We have a kit here that I bought on Amazon. It's got a new magneto, some fuel system parts, a spark plug, filter, carburetor if we need it. We'll probably see if it runs without replacing the carburetor, and if it just doesn't want to go, we'll throw this in there too. So I'm no chainsaw mechanic. I've worked on these in the past, but never as deep as we're going to go today. So let's get this thing going, see if we can get it running again. First things first, we're going to take this bar and chain off. For those that haven't done it before, it's super simple. You have this tool here that came with your saw. What we're going to do, we're just going to use that on these two bolts here. And we're going to see if we can get them loosened. There we go, there's the first one. There's the second one. Get these off of here. And I apologize if I'm a little rusty. It's been quite a long time since I've done a video, but it's time to get back into that. So pull this cover off. You can see here you got your bar, and it should just come right off of here. Maybe not. There we go. So we'll set that off to the side. So first things first, we got to get some of these bits and pieces off of here. Remove this cover here. It's real simple. You either use the tool, or you can just, it's pretty loose. Just pull that off. Gonna get this air cleaner off, and you can see if I can get this on camera. There's two bolts here. We're gonna remove those. Pull the air cleaner off. This one doesn't look too bad. So what we may do is just pull the filter out of the kit. And just put a filter on there, because the intake itself seems pretty good. So we'll pull that guy off. And I really don't have a need for another chainsaw, but this one was sitting in my mother's garage. And I hate seeing good tools go to waste, so I figured I'd bring it home, see what I can do about it. It's been sitting here in my garage for quite a while, and it's just time to get this thing resurrected. My mom has some shrubs she'd like me to cut down, so figured it'd be nice to take my my dad's old chainsaw up there and give it a go with that. So now that we got that off, we really need to get in here, get this spark plug cable, and as you can see, if I pull on this, it just slips right off. So obviously the wires have given way. Not sure when or how that happened, but we're going to pull this outer orange cover off and see if we can get that replaced. Looks like might have to take off a fair amount of this mechanism here. We'll see. We're going to pull the starter cord cover off first, see if we can replace it from there. If not, we will go a little deeper. Alright, so it looks like we have some Torx or star pattern fasteners here. Let's see if we can find the right size. That's the one. Can use a trusty impact driver, see if let's pull these off. Maybe we don't. Might have to break out. Looks like there's 4 of them. One of them is going to be the brake for the chain. But we'll see if we can just leave that on and get this cover off on its own. Put these out set on the side. Alright. Be gentle because I don't want this thing to, there's a spring in there that retains the cable and I don't really want that to come out. And that all looks pretty good. Just going to set that aside, go back on. Right here you can see the original magneto. I guess that's what you'd call it, magneto. Here's the replacement from Amazon. Got a couple miscellaneous wires there. We'll probably not use those. We'll probably try and reuse the ones that are in the saw because they seem fine. And we'll see if we can just put this in here and run the new cable up and see if that does the trick. So it looks like it goes in there just like so. So we'll get these couple of Torx bits, or Torx screws out. And I think in a later episode, I'm going to give you guys a video of how to sharpen the chain on one of these. Again, something that I'm not super familiar with, but would love to learn. And I'd like to take you with me to learn that. Let's see where that cable runs. Yeah, we might have to get this cover off. We'll see. I might be able to get that connector through there. Alright, so we're going to pull a couple of these wires off. There's one little guy here on the side. Going to slide that off. And let's see if we can pull this little plastic piece back. Yep, we can get that through. So that's the old one out. That was easier, much easier than I thought. Pretty filthy. Probably was in need of replacement. Possibly could have gotten a new connector for that. I don't know, you can see that haven't been paying attention to the screen there. You can see it's just looks like the wires broke off. See if we can get this a little closer. So toss that aside. The only thing I'm worried about is getting this big connector. I don't know if you can see up and through this hole here. I think we can. We'll give it a go. If not, we might have to loosen up some other bits, see if we can get this case a little bit. But let's see if we can get it up in there. Trying to keep my head out of the shot too, so you all can see. Looks like there might be just enough room, but possibly not. Considering all these linkages for the carb and for the choke, and that would just all be in the way if I had to remove that. So let's just keep trying to get this guy through here. Looks like it might be going. Hey, there it went. All right. So now we're gonna just make sure we got our orientation right, which of course, there, I believe that's it. And of course, I would forget what the orientation was. I could have gone back in the video and checked that out, but we'll just this in here. Looks like there might be a little bit of adjustment we have to do because we can get closer or further away from that coil or from the fan here, and see if I can show this to y'all. So on this side of the let's see if we can see in there. Here's your two little, and they're probably magnets that will trigger the magneto here to send a spark to the spark plug. On the opposite side there isn't one, so it's on the it's telling it to fire on the compression stroke. At the top of the compression stroke, all the timings are going to be right there in that the flywheel slash fan. So what we'll do, we'll just tighten these guys back up in there. And there's a little grounding wire here. We're going to make sure we get that in under the screw too. I think what I'm going to do, instead of using the impact driver, we're just going to go get a T25 Torx screwdriver, just like this, but with a Torx head on it. So give me 1 second to get to my my toolbox. Pull one of those out. Hopefully I got one. I do. All right. So tighten these up, just snug them up for now. Make sure that this isn't going to be up against this guy here, because we don't want that to be interfering while the saw's running. Lead to premature failure of this guy. Hoping this is all that it needs. You know, I have all these other parts, which are great to have just as a backup, but if we don't need to replace them, I would rather not. All right, let's see. Let me pull the spark plug too. We've got a little compression here, so I want to be able to spin this freely. And this tool that comes with your saw, it does a little bit of everything. It does spark plug, does those bolts on the side. Now this saw here, I believe, might have an automatic tensioner on it. I'm not seeing. Normally you'd have a hole here with a flathead screw on it that you would use to tighten up your bar, but it looks like this one does not have that. So it's either just, oh, let's see. Okay, it goes up there. So this one's a little bit different. Tensioner's on the end here rather than on the front. But yeah, that tool does a little bit of everything for this saw. And when you get one of these, just make sure you don't lose this tool, because it comes in really handy for in the field maintenance. You know, that way when you're out and you don't have access to all your tools, you can still do maintenance on the saw. And it looks like we are hitting a little bit right there. So let's see if we can't just back this up a little bit. Right. Still hitting. I made these a little too tight. I did. Let's back that up until it passes. So it still wants to rub a little bit. Yeah, that looks like it might give us the clearance we need. Let's snug those down. Let's see where we're at. Looks like might be good. Trying to look at the clearance in here. I wish I had a little gauge for that, but no, we're definitely still rubbing, so we're gonna loosen these up again. Let's try just the back one. Again, like I said, I'm no chainsaw mechanic. Relatively handy, but not something I do on a daily basis. Alright, that's back as far as it's going to go. And I'll show you what I'm trying to do. You can see in the old one here, the holes have a little bit of an oval to them, and that allows you just to shift this back and forth, because you have this little pickup here on the end, and you want that to be as close as it can to this flywheel that triggers it without it really touching. And right now it's rubbing just a touch, but I think that should be okay. Actually, no, I don't think it's rubbing at all. Alright, so we're going to snug these down with the impact driver and wire this back up and make sure we have, yeah, I guess we'll try and make sure we have spark. I'll pull the spark plug out and see if I can find a good, there is no good ground up here. But we'll see if we can get this thing going. I'll throw some fuel in it. I emptied it before we started, and see what we can do. So let's tighten these down. Run this wire up to this tab here where the old one was. There's that. Just look at the old one. It's good to keep the old parts sitting around, that way you have a reference of where these cables need to run. Looks like one thing I may have screwed up is this spark plug wire. It's supposed to go underneath here. Judging by the way this one is bent, it looks like it comes down and then underneath that that screw there. So we'll pull it back off. We'll do this over again. Like I said, no professional, but we'll figure it out. And I like doing this so that teach some other folks from my mistakes how this stuff is supposed to go together. Because if one of us knows, then all of us can know. Just figure it out. And don't forget the ground again. I know I mentioned that once, but alright, get those started. Get all this back, make sure it's not going to interfere. Use our screwdriver. Just get a nice little. Actually, let's use a. See if we got a precision screwdriver here that we can use to space that out. I'm not entirely sure where my micro precision screwdriver is. Flathead, obviously. Let's see. It's all Phillips and Torx. Here's something. There, we can use that. See if we can get ourselves a little gap here. There we go. I'll tighten this one down. Let's show you what I did. There's a little, let's see if you can see it on camera, little part here. I just put the screwdriver between the two, and then we'll just make sure that's tight. That'll give us enough clearance there. Pull that out, and then we'll do the same thing down here. Just give ourselves a little bit of clearance. Tighten this back one down. Alright, everything's clear, spins freely. Alright, now we'll get this wire back in here. Just might have to push it up into this retaining tab, which, with this being an aftermarket coil, the wire might not fit up. Let's get one going in there now. Now that's in there, we'll put this back onto this terminal here. Alright, so that's in. Get this wire back underneath this plastic piece here. Run it just like it was when we pulled the other one out. That sucker doesn't want to go in there. Let's see if we can pull this back out. Take a closer look. It definitely looks like there's a channel there for the wire to run through. It's just a matter of getting this new one in there. I just don't want to pinch it to the point where it damages the wire. just over time with vibration, it could wear through it. Let's try this again. I think that right there may do her. There's the bend in the wire. Looks similar to what we had here when this one ran through. It would have been down through there, would have followed that contour. Yeah, I think we're good. Alright, so now that we got that, we will probably pause the video, maybe run and get some fuel. We'll put the cover back on here, get the new air filter back on. You know, and earlier I said I was going to pull the spark plug. I never did that. Feel a little silly now, but yeah, I'm going to pause this video, go get some fuel. We'll put this back together, see if we can get this thing to run. All right, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Got my fuel. For those that don't know or maybe don't use chainsaws all the time, 2-cycle equipment, I keep my 2-cycle fuel in a separate can, which I'm sure everybody does, but I always label it. Not gas. Well, it is gas, but it's gas with oil. It's a 50-to-1 ratio, 50 parts of gasoline to 1 part of oil. It's just that these engines don't have an oil chamber in them for the engine. It's all done through the fuel. I'm not an expert on 2-cycle, so I'm not even going to try to explain how that works, because I don't even fully understand, because, like I said, I'm not a pro. But yeah, make sure you just keep your fuel cans labeled so that, you know, it's not mistakenly used in a 4-cycle engine. Probably wouldn't hurt anything. Actually, I know it wouldn't hurt anything. It just you know, your mileage would get worse, or your consumption would probably get a little worse. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's finish putting this back together, put some fuel in it, and we'll see if it runs. So we'll put the cooler cover back in here. It's simple enough. And again, these were T25 Torx screws. I'm going to see if I have an extension for T25 in here. Something a little bit longer than the other one. That one is T25. Helps if you put it in the right way. Alright. And I'm not making these super tight. These parts are plastic. We don't want to inadvertently crack anything. Alright, starter cover's back on. Alright, so we're going to pull the spark plug too. I think I want to replace that. The kit came with one, so I'm just going to put a new one in there. Again, your tool handles that no problem. Get a little off center here. I hope you all can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to different camera position and see if let me know if you like it or not. Actually, that spark plug doesn't look too bad. We'll set it aside. We'll keep it as a backup. One thing I haven't done is look to see what the gap is supposed to be on this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to look at this one, and I'm just going to try and match them up. I don't know if you can see the gap in those, but it looks pretty similar. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get my gap tool and just open the new one up a little bit to match the one that came out of the saw. I would assume this spark plug's been in there since my father had bought the saw, so it's probably gapped properly from the manufacturer, and we'll just gap the new one to the same spot. So handy dandy little gapping dial here. Just slide the opening in the spark plug all the way at the smallest opening, then slide it across until it doesn't want to move anymore. This one looks like it's at about 0.027. So what we'll do, we'll grab the new one, which this one looks like it's at about 0.23, 0.24. So we'll just use the gauge itself and just bend that up just a tiny bit, slide it over. It looks like it's a bit too much. If it's a bit too much, just lightly tap it on a solid surface. And put it back in there. And I don't know if y'all can see that. Let's see if we can get it to focus on that. We're at about 27, 28 there. So we'll pull that out, throw it back into the saw. And I'm pretty sure when you look at the numbers here, and again, I'm feeling a little bit like a fool because I don't remember, but since it's a 0.02, the 2 would be 100th, the 7 would be 1,000th, so I think you would say 27 thousandths. I'm not 100% sure on that, correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I feel like a fool for not knowing that off the top of my head, but I'm not Mr. AVE who seemingly knows everything. By the way, I love that guy. You should watch all his videos. Alright, spark plug's in. We'll throw this intake back on. Grab the 2 screws. When I say screws, I mean nuts. Snug those up. I'm really hoping this carburetor is all right. Very well may not be, but we'll give her a go, see if it works, and then if not, we'll dive a little bit further into this video and see if we can replace that as well. Again, these fasteners don't have to be super duper tight, just tight enough to not have an air leak. We're going to pull this new filter off of the new intake that we're not going to use, and it just clips onto here. Probably should have cleaned my hands before doing this because I'm getting all kinds of dirt and oil and fuel and whatever else is on my hands right now on there. Come on. You know what? We might have to stick with the old filter because this one doesn't seem to want to go into the... I think they do the same. Let's see what we got going on here. Shouldn't even matter the orientation. I'm not going to futz around with this too much if it doesn't want to go in. Nope, there it went. So say if it doesn't want to go in, we'll just throw the old one on, but that one is in there. Some of this stuff out of the way. Now that that's in, we'll just throw the cover back on. We're going to try and start this without putting the bar and chain on. I might throw this cover on just to protect myself. I don't think anything's going to come off of here, but you never know. There we go. Tighten these up. Alright, so now let's put some fuel in it, see what happens. Get a funnel, if I can find one. This one might be too big. Nope, looks like it'll be alright. I'm not going to throw a lot of fuel in here, just enough to try and get her started. I hate these new fangled spouts. Let's see if that's enough. It's roughly half full. That should get her done. Alright. It is spewing fuel. Alright, we've done something wrong. Let's see where that's coming from. I am not too sure. Seemed to only want to dump fuel when I had it sitting like this. It was coming out of the trigger. At least that's what it felt like. So it was running down through here. But I don't see where that was coming from. See if we can dry some of this up. Ah, we have a crack in the fuel hose. So, we'll have to see how we get this fuel tank, which seems to be part of the chassis, out of the saw. Well, that's a shame. Let's take a look at the kit here. We do have a new fuel hose. So it looks like new small filter. Although we have this, I think it might be this small hose here, but I could be wrong. Alright. So we may actually have to take all of these plastic bits out along with the carburetor in order to get the new let's take a look here. Yeah, I definitely think we're going to have to pull this completely apart, which I was hoping to avoid doing, but these things happen. So let me try and dump this fuel back into the canister. I can do this one-handed without making too much of a mess. I do recommend keeping a rag around when you're doing this too, because as you can see, could be quite the mess. And again, I apologize for any silence or anything during these videos. It's been quite a while since I've done any, and even then I haven't done that many to begin with, so still trying to get into it and just figure out how I can be the best personality that I can be for y'all. So let's see what we need to do to get these bits off. Alright, we're just going to start pulling fasteners. I'm going to take this air cleaner back off because I know for sure that's going to have to go. I wish I had some jokes for y'all, but I'm not really a jokes person. Sure, I'm pretty boring right now, y'all having to watch me fumble around with this. Alright, so we're going to pull this guy back off. Ever one of those moments where you got it apart before, giving you a hassle later? Alright, now that that's off, I can see that I probably didn't have to take it off. Let's flip the saw over. Looks like we're going to have to get the fasteners that are under these tabs here. Looks like it should just be and again, you could use the tool that came with the saw to get these off, but since we're in the garage, we'll just use a screwdriver. There we go. Yeah, looks like it's just more Torx bits under there. I'm glad they at least used a standardized fastener for just about everything in this. Let me see if I have a panel tool that'll work on that. I'll give this guy a try. Oh, that's much better. Alright, got one more. This one's in a bit of a tricky spot. That one came out a lot easier than the other two. Just had this break in the way. Alright, those are out. I'm not sure if there's even a fastener in this hole here. I would assume so because it might just hinge. We will find out. We might even have to pull that rubber grommet out, which I don't know if I can do. But this might all just hinge up. We're going to pull a couple of these fasteners and see what happens. Like that, the handle came loose. Put those fasteners aside. We don't want to lose those. Looks like if we pull these two on the bottom, kind of sort of feel like this is an AVE video. We're just digging into it, not knowing what we're getting into. Let's see how that comes off. Looks like we just have to get one more. I will say the engineering on this thing is excellent. Seems like it's very well made, very well put together. Relatively easy to service. Alright, last fastener. And our handle should be free. Yep. Alright, there's our handle. Set that off to the side. Now that that's off, you can see quite loosey-goosey with everything. I just have to find out, pull the spark plug. Let me look at the new carb, see if I can figure out how that's mounted. Looks like it just comes off the studs there. Let's see here. See if I can just pull the throttle cable through. Not cable, it's more of an arm. I'm not sure the shape of it, so I don't know if I can just... No, it doesn't look like I can just pull it out of the hole. What I'm trying to do is this little arm here, which controls your throttle. The shape of it is more of a hook, so I don't think I can just pull that out. I feel like I can almost pull the carb just right off of, and if I had that off, it'd be in much better shape. I don't feel any fasteners holding this black piece on. It might just, I don't want to break it. I feel like it might just pop up on a hinge. There could be a fastener. Yes, there is. And that fastener definitely is smaller compared to the other ones. Still a T25, just smaller. Alright, that guy lifts up and out. And now we can disconnect our throttle. Man, the engineering on this is excellent. So easy. Like I said, I'm not a pro and I'm figuring it out no problem. Alright, that guy's off. So we have the choke still attached. Let's see if we can. Now that I push that down, it's all locked up. There we go. Let's see if we can get choke, little arm here. Might just pop out like so. And that little wire there, that's for the shut off. It just fits in here. You can see there's a little bar in here right at the end of my screwdriver, and when this is in here, when you turn it off, it just makes contact between the two, creates a ground loop to the coil, shuts the saw off. I hope I'm not breaking this. Alright, there's the choke. And we'll see if we can get this carburetor out of here. There we are. Alright, disconnect this fuel line. Now that that's off, see what it takes to just might be able to do this from the top. Getting it out isn't going to be the issue, it's going to be getting it back in. How does that fuel filter come out of that hole? Doesn't look like it does. See if we can get this over to the side here. So the needle nose pliers might do it a little easier to get a hold of. Maybe not. Alright. So now that we got this here, disconnect it. Alright. There's your fuel filter. Came with a new one. We'll probably just reuse the old one because it looks clean. And I don't know where this replacement was made. I don't know if it's of quality. I'd rather just use the OE part if I can. Alright, so there's the fuel tube. Now the new one looks similar, but it doesn't have that bend in it. We'll see if that that affects us or not. We might just it might just sit in there like that. We'll see if we can get this in. Again, getting it, might have to do it from the inside. Problem is getting it to seal properly so that we don't end up with any leaks. And I've probably got my head in the way because I'm having a hard time seeing. See if I can get a little more light over here. And I'm sure you guys that have done this before are cringing right now because there's probably a much easier way to do this. And I must say it's frustrating, but it's definitely a bit tedious. Just looking at the old one, seeing if there's something I'm doing wrong. Don't think there is. It's just going to be how it is. Going to have to mess with it until we get it. And what I'm trying to do, you can see on this one that there's a little groove along this rubber piece, and that's essentially your gasket between the tank and just open air, and just getting that to seat properly on the edge in the fuel tank is giving me a bit of a hassle because I can only get one finger in there and can't get enough pressure from the bottom get it to come up through. I hate using this screwdriver. Oh, there. I think I got it. Hate using the screwdriver on it because I'm afraid I'm going to poke a hole in the fuel line. But I think we got it. Definitely got that. Probably should have put the fuel filter on before I did all that. But it looks like I can still get the end of it here. Let's see if we... Looks like the where'd that old one go? Looks like the hole on the old one, yeah, it's about the same size as the new one. Should be able to get this in there. Still has plenty of fuel on it, so it's got some lubrication. See if we get this in here. If not, we'll put the replacement on, because I do feel like this rubber isn't nearly as pliable as the old rubber. So getting this fuel filter on here, we're just going to go with the new one. It's going to be much easier to get in there. Alright, so that's in. I'm a little concerned about having enough of the angle that this sits in here, and it being able to pick up fuel when it's being turned in different directions. I'm not entirely sure the orientation of that, because it looks like the old one came in and went forward towards the front of the saw. I would assume these filters, I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but there's a little bit of fuel still, you're not going to see that. There's a little bit of fuel still in the filter, so these filters must have the ability to draw fuel in but keep a little bit in the filter itself, so when you turn the saw on the side, it still has some fuel going to the carburetor. Hopefully the new one can do a little bit of the same. Okay, now that we got that, I'm going to try and put this back together. Hopefully we didn't screw too much up. Now that I have the carb out, let's take a look at something here, because the carbs are similar, but they are definitely not the same. The Stihl carb is a Walbro, which I believe is a top name. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like there's an additional adjuster screw on here, an L and an H, a low and a high. It's probably, I'm not even going to guess what that is. It's probably fuel and air related, but again, I am no pro. I'm just a guy in his garage. Alright, so now that we got that, we're going to get the carb back in. I'm trying to see if there was a filter that or not a filter, a gasket that I may have dropped. Does not look like there was a gasket. So we are just going to push this one back in there. We'll attach our fuel line first. Which again feels a little loosey-goosey. You know, I may put a, and some of you might cringe at this, I may put a zip tie around that just to keep that tight. No short buttons. So we'll do, let's put a zip tie here, just pull it through. Try and keep it away from the choke. That way it doesn't interfere with anything. And we'll snip that off. Alright, let's see if we can get this back on here. that's in. Everything looks happy. I'm just gonna, hopefully, we didn't screw it up too much, but I think we'll be fine. And we got this trigger area locked up. I'm trying to figure out, there we go. So that's off. So this needs to slide in here. Oh, let's get our choke hooked back up. There's just a small little hole here that it goes into. It's just a matter of getting the angles right. Which again, there's somebody out there that's screaming and yelling because there's an easier way to do this. I just don't know the easier way. And it's just the angle is, it helped for getting it out, for putting it in. There's the trick. All right, well, the more you know. The trick was to close the carb to get the line on there. And I'm going to show the kill switch a little bit closer here. You can see this terminal just slides into this plastic piece. And what happens is when you turn it off, this guy slips over top of the plastic and makes contact with the terminal. Not sure. Yeah, it looks like you can see that. When you turn it on and off, you can see it slipping up and over. All right. Now we got that on. Now we'll do the same with the throttle. Hopefully, I don't have too many issues with this. If I could see. Put it on the throttle there. It's going to go right on there. Push it down into this clip. And now our throttle works. I haven't been checking to make sure any of this is on camera. I kind of feel. Alright, so now that we're there, looks like that's it for that. We'll throw the air cleaner back on. And did it again. Not sure why this keeps binding up. Don't want it to happen. Oh, that's it. Alright. It's binding up because I'm a fool. Now that we've got that, we're going to start putting some screws back in. Get this sucker back together. And then see if she runs. This just slides back onto the top. Just like so. Maybe. There we go. We'll get her. Sorry for the long video. Might be able to edit through some of this. Didn't really, well, I guess I kind of expected to have to get this deep into it. I was kind of hoping I wouldn't have to, but don't always get what you want. The Rolling Stones have said that. And these, I'm just making them tight, not super duper. Again, there's probably torque specs out there and everything. I don't have a service manual for this thing, so we're just going to do what feels right. See if we can get this lined up. That looks pretty close. I think that took. All right, now we'll get these two back in. Alright, that's all, looks like all the screws for the handle. We should have a few left here. Yep. Let's put the cover for the trigger back on. Alright, so I'm getting some right there. Not sure why that. Yeah, it's slipping past the oh, I see. Yeah, the spring just wasn't sitting in the right spot. There we go. And this is that smaller screw. Okay, now we'll put the puller back on, starter, whatever you want to call it. Three more, and then the intake, and then we can actually see if it runs. All right, let's put the spark plug in. It's the old one. Spark plugs in. Now for the air cleaner and intake. And then we have to put all the those covers back in that were on each one of the Torx screws. Just keeps dirt and grime from getting into the Torx head, making it difficult to get them out. And when we tighten this down, it's also tightening down the carb to the engine. That's why I said that there was no need for a gasket, because it looked like there was a rubber piece. Let's see. Yeah, I believe this is the rubber piece. I'm trying to think, it might not be. From the replacement kit that goes between the engine and the carburetor, and just kind of the pressure cinches it down. I think that's what this is. I didn't take a close look at it when I had the carb off. But it looks like everything's working properly. Choke's working properly. Alright, let's put these covers in. And then we'll put some fuel in it again. See if we can't get it started. I'm hoping we can. Like I said, you know, I have another Stihl saw in the shed, but I would love to be able to take this one to do some work at my mom's place this weekend, and I'm sure she'd appreciate me bringing it back out. Where did this last one go? This is the issue we run into. Don't forget where your could have swore it was here on the bottom. It's definitely not that. Ah, right here. The one that had no fastener at all. Alright, let's put some fuel in it. Give this another try. Hopefully we didn't mess it up too bad, and we can get this thing running. Just like before. I'm not going to use the spout. I'm just going to pour right from the container into the saw. We'll fill it up most of the way. Set those aside. Alright, moment of truth. See if it runs. Let's see if I can get some of this on camera. Well, doesn't even feel like it's trying. Alright, well, that's a fail. Alright, I'm gonna see if I have a little bit of starting fluid and see what the issue is, if it's a spark problem or if it's a carburetor problem, no fuel. So give me a quick minute, I'll get some of that, and then we'll give this another try. Alright, we got some starting fluid. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pull the filter off, spray a small amount in here, and we'll find out if our issue is fuel or if our issue is spark. I'm hoping it's not the latter. Actually, no. I'm hoping it's not a fuel issue, because I don't want to pull it apart again. If it comes to that, we'll do it off camera, and once we get down to the carburetor again, we'll bring you back on board. But let's try this, see what happens. If it tries to turn over, we know what the issue is. Spray a little bit in there, and here we go. Alright, seems like our issue may be still spark. I think I may know what may be causing that. It could just be that spacing that we did. So let's get back in here. Let's get you back on camera. There we go. Sorry about that. Pull this off again. Don't know how many times we've done this now, but probably too many. Okay, let's pull the spark plug since now this thing does have fuel in it. We don't need chainsaw taking off on us while we're working on it. Alright, so what it could be, I may have these a bit too far apart. Let me get a flashlight. It's either that or this new coil is not working right for this saw. Because that seems pretty close. Again, sorry if my head's in the way. Feels like it might be touching. That could be the issue too. Let me see if we can get a little bit more space in there. Although it doesn't feel like it can move too much further. These need to be a little bit tighter. Okay. Back them off just a touch. So these are magnets. When push come to shove, we will. It's definitely touching. Let's see if we can figure out a way to visualize spark. No, I wonder if that was not in the whole way. I wonder if it was that simple. The spark plug just wasn't properly mounted in there. That'd be stupid. Sorry if I'm not talking too much. I'm a bit frustrated now. I don't want to end the video on a fail. I will if I have to, because I don't have a ton of time today to work on this. Just fell into the carb. Alright, throw this back on, see where we're at. Very well could have been that I just didn't have the spark plug wire on right. So I always double check what you're doing before tearing things back apart. Now, for all I know, that's not the issue, but I'm definitely hoping it was. Alright, we're all back together. Let's see what she does. Hey, it tried. Still not entirely sure what's going on here. It tried once to kick over, and then it stopped trying. Let me pull the spark plug out. We'll see if it's damp. Not so sure about this spark plug wire. Spark plug's definitely damp. I don't know if you can see that. Let me pull it a couple times with it off. See if that's dried it out a bit. I'm actually going to put the old spark plug back in, since I know that one's a good quality one. We'll just clean it up a little bit. And for all I know, this gap is way off. I might check with the old interwebs, see what they say. Wish I had a simple way to check to see if there was spark. But the issue is there's no grounding metal on the outside of this saw for me to touch the outside of the spark plug to, so I can see if there's spark or not. The other thing I don't like is when I put this spark plug wire on, the piece that holds the boot to the spark plug, see, now it's rotated in there. I don't know if you see how it's now rotated in there. I'm not so sure about the quality of this. We're going to see if we can get that spun back around, and then once it is on there, it wants to stay on there and not come off. So Yeah, see, it doesn't even want to go on now. It doesn't want to point the right direction. Every time I move it, it just spins in the boot. This is going to piss me off. Maybe this should be a video about making sure you buy the right parts. Because obviously, these aftermarket parts aren't nearly as good as the originals. But that seems to be on there. Alright. See what happens. See, it acts like it wants to try. Let's stop choking it for a second. Oh! It wants to. YouTube! There it is. Fix the saw. It's frustrating, especially there at the end, but I'm glad we got it back together. I don't really talk about my father much anymore since he's died. It's a bit of a sore subject. Not sore, but he passed younger. He was in his 60s, and I miss him. And I know he'd be proud of me for this, for taking it upon myself to fix this. And it's not, like I said, I'm relatively mechanically inclined. I do everything around the house. I don't hire anybody to do stuff, but he'd be really happy if I came back home with his old saw to return it to him and it was working. He'd be proud of me. So I'm glad I got this running. It's been sitting here for a while. I've been meaning to do it, and I've been putting it off. But now I've got it done, and I'm super happy. I'm so glad it works. And I'll take it up there this weekend or early next week and do some work for my mom with it. So I'm glad you all tuned in. Please, if you like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, or just like it. I'd really appreciate that. And I hope you all have a great week. Until next time.